Okay, I'm so excited to talk about the topic for today. You know why? Because it is about the operating mind, I guess you could call it a mind, of the great I am. How does this mind work? And this is in conjunction with what we know happens to trauma survivors, C-PTSD. I'm someone who, I lived with complex post-traumatic stress disorder for years. I had a suppressed traumatic memory, multiple suppressed traumatic memories, and they were never dealt with in time. So if you've been tracking with my videos, I'm talking about your timeline and how we, as a musician, this is my implementation of organizing sound in time, events in time, rhythm in time. You're making music with your life when you process things as they come. When you suppress things, that's when your brain gets all squirrely, and we're trying to avoid that. But I do want to talk about complex post-traumatic stress disorder and the mind of the great I am, which is omnipotence. So what happens with omnipotence? I can't talk. What happens with omnipotence? Likewise, let's draw a Venn diagram. You know what? We're gonna put this over here. What happens with omnipotence? Make this clearer for you guys. I'm doing this as I go. I am, the great I am, and omnipotence. Okay. Omnipotence, C-PTSD. Okay. What do we know about omnipotence? It's all-knowing. Okay, I'm gonna use a new color for this. I'm gonna do orange. All-knowing. All-knowing. Is there anything else we know about it? If we just stick with that, you can write in the comments if I'm missing anything. It's all-knowingness. It's all-knowingness. What is C-PTSD? It's hyper aware. Now, what's similar about both of these? Complex processing of multiple events. Okay? So why is this important for us? Because we live in a world where so many people have been traumatized, and once you're traumatized, you're not in a state of being cognizant of what you need. You're living in a state of survival, which automatically puts you in a place of vulnerability. And I'm trying to break through this trend we have in the world where we see vulnerability and we take advantage of it. And this is more for the self than it is, it's both ways. It's more for the people that are taking the advantage of, because those people that do that are harming themselves just as much as they're harming the victim. They're harming our world just as much as they're harming the victim. They're not leading. They are just causing harm. So, C-PTSD, hyper-awareness. Let's take this a step back though, okay? We have omnipotence. What about anxiety? Let's just talk about one disorder, because if you're like me, I consider C-PTSD as an umbrella. It's an umbrella for a lot of different disorders. And I would say within those are anxiety, BPD, depression, it could be adjustment disorder, everything attached to a traumatic event that is now being triggered by association. If you don't know the definition and the difference between PTSD and C-PTSD, PTSD is linked to one event only, and it has to be specific to that event, which is your trigger. Okay, so like a gunshot, and then there's a loud sound. That sounds like the gunshot, right? That's the most typical example that we have. C-PTSD, the association and the trigger around that gunshot that was heard or that caused the trauma and the PTSD, the association wouldn't be a sound. It would be something around the circumstances of when the trauma happened. So see how it's automatically in this realm of like, holy crap, that's really dynamic and complex and a lot to deal with. Yeah. I lived with that for about 20 years. I'm still kind of cycling a few things out, and there are more people on the earth that are operating that way decades longer than I have. So let's look at just one of these, right? Let's look at anxiety. What does anxiety do? Anxiety, it causes you to lose breathing, lose breath. It causes doubts. And what else would you say it does? You can put it in the comments. So anxiety is just one factor of C-PTSD. We could do another one. We could do BPD. That one causes a disconnect, right? Dissociation. Disconnect. Dissociate. Right? So if we break these down, we have anxiety, we have BPD. We could look at depression and adjustment disorder too. We could look at schizophrenia. All of these factors stem from C-PTSD, which stem from what? A traumatic event, okay? Trauma event or events. And why I want to make this correlation. What is a traumatic event we know that happened? Jesus died on a cross. He was murdered by mankind. I don't think anyone puts it into those kinds of words. Jesus was murdered by mankind. Mankind murdered Jesus. We murdered our Savior. We murdered our Savior. I just need to get that to sit, because people focus so much on the Savior complex around Christ without factoring in, oh no, he was manipulated. They manipulated his life. They trafficked him. They sold him. He was sold. That's trafficking. And then he was murdered. Why does that matter? Why does this matter? Because when you go through a traumatic experience, right? Here's our traumatic experiences that lead to your C-PTSD. This, in essence, is bringing you into a space of a degree that is like Christ. But it is not the degree of being like Christ that you are designed to fulfill. And that is the trick of the game. That is the key to the game, where if you make your trauma about you, you are overriding who it was designed to be carried by, not you. That's why you have to detach, and you have to say, going back to my last video, I am. You're not connected to this. Like, the event happened to you, but it has nothing to do with you. Okay? The amount of awareness and multiple processing that's going on in your mind, that is something that God does. That is something that Christ was made to do. We weren't made to do that. That is not human design. That is God's design for God himself alone, not for humans. We have two eyes. We don't have the vision of even like a horse, where horses can see more around themselves and they have one tiny little blind spot in between their eyes. but they have a bigger range of vision than we do. We don't even have that. We have 2 eyes that keep us looking directly forward. And if we don't look directly forward and focused with our eyes, what happens? The complexity of processing in our brain. So why is this important? Let's wrap this up. That traumatic event, if you suppressed it like I did, and because I suppressed that, I then overlooked all of the other events that had happened in my life previously that my body remembered that were the origins of trauma in my life. So all I did ever know was that trauma happens, you suppress it, you can keep surviving. What did that do to me? It broke me down. It destroyed me, nearly destroyed me. And that was my wake-up call. That was my wake-up call to realizing, oh my gosh, it's not about me at all. It's not about you. Find the way to detach from it, to release it from your life. And you won't do that if you don't uncover what was suppressed. You will not do that if you won't turn towards it, full vision, and say, I see you. We're not going to allow this to remain anymore. We're not going to allow this to stay in our system, in our psyche, in our mind, in our heart anymore. You have to say, I will not allow it. It's what you say, and that will become. That's how the voice works. So I hope this helped you. And if you would like some one-on-one assistance, I'm running my round robin challenge right now. And this is an opportunity to work with me one-on-one for 3 30-minute coaching sessions. I only have a limited amount of spots, so DM or comment me round robin or just Robin, and I'll send you the link to get signed up for that, and we'll talk soon.